bonjour, bienvenue, salut, however you say it, ladies and gentlemen. French is gonna be the show for today as we head to Paul Ricard for round 5 of the Simrigs Sprint Series. Hello everybody, my name is Nick Amon and I want to welcome you to tonight's broadcast. We had a week off, but now we are back once again. And of course, joining me in the booth is going to be Mr. Kevin Parody. Kevin, it's good to have you back.
Oh, thank you very much. I missed a week, and I missed that week, so it is also very good to be back. Looks like we've got our regular crew at the front, but with what's happened in the other splits with the weather, who knows?
Yeah, there's been some precipitation out there, and maybe we get lucky, maybe we don't. I know these drivers probably have a certain thing they're hoping for, and something that I would definitely also hope for, as I have very little practice, as I'm sure you're aware. But yeah, back once again, and if I'm not mistaken, this should be a super sprint week.
It is a 20-minute and a 40-minute race with the important bit is with a pit stop in both of them, including the short 20-minute sprint race.
That's tricky, because normally when drivers are running a 20-minute race, it's a pub and there's no pit stops, it's just a straight sprint to the end. But with this, you know, I think we'll be seeing a lot of just half races, you know, one half on one, or the first half on the first set and the second half on the second.
We've seen all kinds of things so far. There's been folks pit almost immediately just to get out of the mess or potential mess. We've seen people running long. Because it is, I believe, only for fuel, it's going to be a blink. They're going to be stopped for just a second. But it's really going to, the chances of messing up on the way in and the way out are increased. Plus, you've got no time in the race. You can't take a break on track for 20 minutes. And then the second race, twice as long, so you think you've got it made, but that's a reverse grid start. So that one's not going to be gentle on anybody either.
Oh, and you know all about those reverse grid starts, if I'm not mistaken, Kevin. We had a discussion a few weeks ago.
There's a scar on my brain from the time I was forced to start on pole, yes.
Well, for some, they'll be experiencing the same thing, but right now we're getting through the first round of qualifying. Skylar Loverink on pole, unfortunately, did not win at Monza, not because of him being overtaken or crashing up, but because he disconnected from the server. Whether that was computer or internet related is still a question that I have yet to ask, but unfortunately Loverink will not go for the continued streak here in the Sprint Series, but surely he'll be looking to bounce back from this, I would say.
Absolutely, and I'm just glad to see the John Lacey livery back on the stream as well.
Oh yeah, it is one of the best, I think. Of course, the prestige of it also being carried over with such a livery. So just looking at the stats here at the moment, Loverink is clear to Clifford by 89 points. But there's still time for the 999 to make some noise, as he is just under 2/10 behind here in this first round of qualifying. Kevin, so I did want to ask you, obviously, how you have been, because it has been a while, seeing as you were sick. But we have 2 races left this season. We have Barcelona, and then we have a driver vote round for the final round. If there was one track you wanted to see, what would it be?
If it were up to me, we'd be going to Laguna Seca, and people will now be throwing virtual rocks at me from all directions. I love that track. I think it is all but a foregone conclusion that the race is going to be on the track that was introduced with the latest DLC. I think we have yet to race it competitively, so I am fully expecting this.
Yeah, there was a vote put up in the Sprint channel for not just here in NA, but this is across every region, AP and EU. The result, or not the results, but rather the choices are the Red Bull Ring, Zolder, Zandvoort, and Simmons Plains. I'm fairly certain that's not the circuit I'm thinking of, because there's only one Australian circuit in the game, unless I'm an idiot and I'm mixing things up.
Apparently, it started as a small joke, and it has since exploded into a very large joke. But whether it's on Assetto Corsa, which I believe it's a deal, it's a content for, or whether it's just some more of our, shall we call it, Southern Hemispheric pride showing through. They decided that the new track could wait because they'd all rather race on a, what I am quite convinced is a fictitious track in a fictitious country.
Well, I don't know if Tasmania exists. I could be wrong, though. I'll have to talk to Mullock about that. Simmons Plains, of course, I just looked it up because obviously the name sounds familiar. I didn't remember what it looked like. Seven turns out of Tasmania. Obviously very popular with the V8 supercars, which I find myself deeply enthralled with. That season started up very recently. So I don't know. Maybe we'll set something special up. But right now the vote is leaning very heavily towards the Red Bull Ring, which has 68 votes. Zolder has 12, as does Zandvoort, but Simmons Plains has 75. And then there's another circuit emote on there that has 2 that I'm not familiar with. But yeah, right now it's looking like
those must be a write-in vote because I think there were officially only 3 choices.
We can add our own. We can add our own, Kevin. This is a bad idea. Oh god, but well, we'll leave that for for everyone else to figure out. Right now, though, we are getting towards that last minute of qualifying here with Andre Lloyd, one of the new drivers, if I'm not mistaken, here in the OOR with a very sweet-looking Porsche livery. Kind of gives me a little bit of Polaroid vibes just by the streaks, but that could just be me right now. 14th for the 937. Lovering still on pole, is starting another lap, hasn't improved. It's still that 153.16 from earlier. Clifford, second place with that 153.36. And then it's Landry, who was last week's winner. Carpenter, Keogh, who just actually goes up to 4th ahead of Carpenter. So that's your top 5. Wilson, 6th. Sanchez is 7th. Rasco is 8th. Portis is 9th. And Frizza is 10th. I'm going to be honest, I'm not surprised at our top 10.
I am certainly not surprised that 9 of them are mid-engine cars. This track is all about balance, and these low, fast mid-engine cars definitely with still no BOP in place. I'm a fan of no BOP. You can get the virtual rocks all you like, but the mid-engine cars are showing off what they are about here.
Absolutely. Dan Fernandez, though, has to settle 15th quickest. A 156.12 is what he's got best. A lot of drivers in the pits. Frizza has finalized 10th. Darren Wicks, I thought for a moment was ahead. He is just about even with the Delta. We'll check in. Jaden Hernandez coming down the pit or the front straight. I think he's about half a second. That'll go up to 15th position for the 888. That's very good improvements for him. Rasco, though, speaking of improvements, he is 3 tenths, 2 tenths now, coming on to the coming out of the final turn rather. How much higher is this going to put him? Just around Sanchez. So 4 McLarens lining up 5th through 8th. And then there's a little break in between with Keogh with the Aston before we get to another McLaren of Landry. But the 2 Lamborghinis sitting atop the pile right now. Could Carpenter get into the top 3? That's the big question. Crosses the line? No, but he does push Keogh down a spot. So it goes double Lambo, then double McLaren before we have that little break. And I don't think... Oh, Darren Wicks actually, I think just pipped some extra time out of his Audi. He is really pushing to get into the top 10, but he's got to find 4 tenths over Frizza, and right now the 10th positive has just disappeared, so at the very least he'll probably just improve his personal best as he crosses the line. He is going to do just that, and we won't even get a chance to look at everything because we're immediately jumping into the grid, and well, Kevin, I think you know what happens, as does everybody else.
I love this part because we get to see what they've come up with in the last week. There's the liveries that we've seen that have been here all season, but I always like to look for the new ones.
Well, we'll certainly...
Classic.
Yeah, we'll take a look. Classic or newfangled, whatever the drivers may choose. It's always a delight to see creativity come out, whether it's this season, last season, seasons later, or even the special events that we have in ACC or in other racing games that we tend to show up and show out for. But take another look at them, folks. You'll get a few more this season, don't worry, and you'll get a second one later tonight. But it is Love Rink On pole position again, looking to redeem himself from last week's disconnect, it's Jonathan Clifford in the fellow Lamborghini that lines up second on the grid. Then it was Michael Landry, third overall, and then Carpenter. Carpenter, of course, was sitting in fifth, but improved at the last second, and that pushed the Aston Martin of Ben Keogh down to fifth. You just saw him right side of your screen. And it's going to be Andrew Wilson and Brian Raska with, of course, what I would say is probably my favorite livery, as I forgot to take off the autopilot. What else is new? Give me a second. But yeah, I love Raska's livery. I'm patriotic. I can't help it. It's just who I am. I will take full responsibility for that. But anyways, we're back. Sanchez in the weave machine, as he always does. I respect him for the consistency. And then it's Kenneth Portis, 9th position in the Honda return to form, especially with the BOP changes that have been, unfortunately, sandbagging that car for a while. And Chris Frizza rounds out your top 10. Darren Wicks is going to start us off in 11th with that Tron Audi. He's done a pretty formidable job just keeping himself together, but he's got a lot of work to do if he wants to get around Frizza by the end of it. Tim Brook from Great Britain in the 404, the 12th here on the grid. Then it's Larry Lanham back with the BMW. Andre Lloyd, we chatted about him a little bit not too long ago. He'll be 14th. Then it's Hernandez and Fernandez, 15th and 16th on the grid. Dave Hasser, of course, the Send News Ferrari, will be 17th. And then it's Tyler Doggins, Craig Pocket, Ondanique Stapleton, and of course Edson Martinez. Another instance of seeing how far up the grid he can go just by not qualifying in the number 77 Porsche. But folks, as these cars rumble to life, that means we're just under 30 seconds away from the start of this race. We're going to give a shout out to Simrigs for sponsoring season 16 of the Sprint Series out of Melbourne, Australia. A lot of great things come out of there, let's be honest, and Simrigs is no different. Anything you could think of for your sim rig, whether it be wheels, pedals, shifters, gloves, or literally just anything at all, they've got you covered. If you happen to live in Australia, New Zealand, you guys are going to be all set. But if you're like Kevin, myself, or anybody else outside of the AP region, well, you got to send them an email, and they'd be more than happy to do some business with you. And of course, if you're a Patreon member, you guys are going to be getting 5% off your in-store purchases. So do take advantage of that. Sim racing, not cheap, especially nowadays. It feels like it just gets more and more expensive. So save yourself a little bit of money wherever you can. But again, thank you to Simrigs for sponsoring another season of the Sprint Series. We're on track, though, and these drivers are getting ready for 20 minutes of action ahead of them. Kevin, predictions for the start. What are we expecting to see? And don't say carnage and chaos, because everybody says that.
Oh, and it's that one's a given this time. With only probably 10 or 11 laps and a pit stop in this first race, this is going to be wild. My prediction is actually the 2 or 3 people at the front will actually get through that and run away and get a bit of a gap, and probably duel it out amongst themselves, at least for this first race.
All right, I think that's fair. Probably couldn't have put it better myself, I'm being totally honest, so thank you, Kevin, for being the smart one of us. Yeah, I think it's really going to be, if I had to bet on it, it's going to be Lovering pulling away and then everyone else kind of just fighting amongst themselves, because time and time again, Lovering has proven that he has, without a shadow of a doubt, been the man to beat week in and week out, and this is going to be no different.
The only caveat I would put on that is that tonight Clifford got within 2/10. So given how important draft is here on this interminable straight, if he can stay attached, there might not be that gap. We'll have to see.
That's the one thing I was waiting for, was this long back straight, which is great that we have the long back straight, because if we had any of the turns like they do in F1, then these laps are going to be so much longer. So it's good that we don't, because I mean, GT3s are a little bit slower than your average F1 car, unless it's the Haas from the last few seasons, but that's besides the point. We're lining up 2x2 here, a little 3 wide action there, I think, up at the front. This is going to be the first of 2 races this evening. 20 minutes on the clock, 1 pit stop, and then we'll go into the next round of qualifying. Of course, we'll refresh your memories on the format of our Super Sprint qualifying 2 sessions, and then we'll get into that second 40-minute race to round out the evening. The calm before the storm, 21 cars. The clouds are a little bit overhead, but not enough to really threaten any precipitation. You see 30 minutes out, we're going to be bone dry, so optimum track. Surprisingly, the plateau that Paul Ricard sits on is not producing any sort of wind, so that is going to be quite the surprise. Usually we have some pretty high winds, but folks, side by side, down the front straight we go. 21 cars are going to enter. How many will leave? And of course, the big question, who's going to come out on top in both of these contests? Crossing the line under the banner, and we're green, green, green here at Paul Ricard. It's going to be a great getaway there from the Aston Martin of Kia, who almost goes into the side of the McLaren, not once, but twice, as we head into turn number 1. Loverank holding station and just sending it down the inside. The McLaren there of Landry duking it out with Clifford from inside to outside, but it is going to be Clifford who does get the better of the deals, but he is not out of the woods just yet. We're going to join Austin Carpenter. Head down to turn number 3. He's side by side with Keogh. There's Sanchez with a late move down the inside. He's trying to find a little bit of real estate that he can work with, but it's not going to be there. Has to dive around the outside. Almost more contact. Drivers just getting through. One slight spin there is recovered beautifully. I didn't quite see who that was, but Stapleton and the Ferrari here starting to gain some advantage. And now we head on to the back straight, and it has been relatively clean. Kevin, get ready for this.
Wow, I eeped silently about 7 times during that first 30 seconds of that race. There could have been mayhem everywhere, but there hasn't been. So that is wonderful. Now let's see them sort themselves out the first time to the sides.
Yeah, Wilson there, the Golf McLaren on the inside. He had a little bit of a sprint, but it wasn't enough. Brian Rasco getting into the picture as well. So the 3 McLarens here starting to duel a little bit, as it is the 91 of Wilson who just goes wide. That's going to invite Rasco down the inside, but he's not quite far enough ahead. But he's going to be later on the brakes. He's trying to make this move stick, but it's Wilson with experience and nerves of steel that's just barely holding on, as again Rasco has to go for this position. It's inside to outside, but when he pulls alongside, it's just the worst possible timing, and he is going to back out of this one temporarily. And there is Kenneth Portis as well. And, Kevin, you're calling it. Someone's immediately going in, and that's Portis. He wants to get out of this mess early.
Oh, yeah. You could smell the chaos. Like, as I mentioned earlier, nobody's thinking this is the first lap. There's only 10 laps. It's go time right from the time they dropped the green flag. So, side by side into a 280-kilometer corner on cold tires. Yeah, I guess we're doing this. Seems to be the answer. So it's going to be interesting to see how far that goes. We do have over a second gap in front, so that's out of draft. But second and third are still within drafting range of each other, so if they can work together, they might close that up. Otherwise, you're going to win that round of the bingo card with Loverank driving away.
Well, that's going to be a task easier said than done, as Dan Hernandez is starting to get a little bit dicey there with Hernandez, but he's got the confidence and the grip. He'll go around the outside there before we get to the back straight. So the McLaren pulling ahead of the BMW for 14th position. Portis and Pocket out of the pit lane very early. So like you said, Kevin, they want to get that done, get out of the chaos. And you saw a few drivers in the background. Tim Brook in a very tricky situation because Frizza's right behind him. That slipstream gave the Stallion a little bit of a boost, but it was too little too late. And for now, it's the 404, not giving you a web page error, but rather giving Frizza a position error because he's holding on the 9th.
It's the one thing I just occurred to me with the early pit stops on this track. Again, I'll say it over and over, the draft is so important on this straight. Those drivers, 2 of them came in together, I think, so they might have a draft partner, but if not, they're going to be giving up 10, 12 kilometers an hour potentially by the end of the straightaway on every single lap until they get back in the pack. So we'll have to see if this pays off or not.
Well, the looking at it, Portis is about 6 or 7 seconds ahead, it looks like, if I had to bet on it. I know that the timing sheets are always very questionable in this game. So, yeah, they might be missing out as Stapleton and Martinez comes in. So that might be the drafting pair you just talked about, Kevin. We'll wait and see. Loverank, though, well ahead of the competition. Well, I say well ahead. It's not looking like it. Maybe he's just sandbagging a little bit. You see a little bit of the network coming into play here, but he is out of slipstream range. Clifford surprisingly having fastest lap by about 700ths, but despite that, he is nowhere close, cannot take advantage of this.
Well, they are, I was going to say inching closer, but it's happening so slow, I think I'm going to say millimetering closer. Clifford is closing, but it's hundredths per sector, at maybe half a tenth for a lap, but it is going down. So already under 9/10, so another 2/10 and they're in draft, and this whole game changes.
Yeah, Lloyd also in the draft, looking to gain some speed. How much, I'm not certain. Stapleton picking up a drive-through. Very easy to go over track limits here, especially with just how flat this thing is, how many configurations there are, and how it seems like sometimes the same corner will have different track limits depending on the lap. Of course, I would say it's fine that it's early, but it's a 20-minute race, and Stapleton still has to pit. So even if they go through and, get that pit stop, it's not going to change anything. They'll still have to come in again. So Stapleton, I think, effectively might be out of this as we see Keogh dip into the pit lane.
This has got to be probably Portis's dream come true. They're very, very close in pace, and if they come out together, then they'll have that partner they're looking for to catch back up. The other thing we saw there in that last shot was the poor Porsche drivers seeing what the end of the straightaway looks like for them here at Paul Ricard, which is mostly the car ahead of them driving away. Top speed is not that car's best feature.
No, that's something a lot of drivers will complain about, among other things, depending on who you are. But we, I don't know. I feel like out of all the cars you could take, Porsche's probably the last one. I think the second one maybe be Bentley.
I think we're watching the one that a lot of people don't like, the Audi, the car that started the Audi Kings meme.
Shout out to Ryan
Porsche,
Garrity, you know all about that.
The Porsche, all they've said, the nicest thing you can say about the 992 is it handles better than the 991. That's all I've heard about it. But this car, to be driving this car consistently and turning good, solid times and results in an Audi is impressive, given its tendencies for murder.
Yeah, I've seen many a Audi completely lose it at a certain turn combination at Spa where you go down and then really, really up. I've seen plenty of them. Just it almost feels like the back end kind of just steps up, like there's, the jackman puts the air hose in, but it only goes to the rear ones. It doesn't go to the front ones, and it fishtail. It sort of slides a little bit, and then it snaps the other way, and well, it's a free position game. But thankfully at Paul Ricard, that really isn't the case because, well, we're on a plateau. There isn't a lot of elevation besides in the pit lane. I think you have that little drop.
Yeah, it's a car that, like all of them, if you're good at that car, you could drive it. But for most of us to jump into it, there'd be a lot of swearing and a lot of crashing.
That's just how I race, anyways. It just from where I'm from, that's how you learn. You just got to deal with it. People here don't know how to drive, but we're not the worst drivers. That's Rhode Island. But anyways, Rasco having to put on some driving skills right now because he's looking for a way around Wilson. But despite being in the same car, he's struggling.
It's this corner that we're watching here is so important. How you get out of there. 1 kilometer at the start of this straight is 3 or 4 at the end. So if you come out of that corner and watch that gap get bigger, you just, here we go again. But they are technically within the draft, but it's just not close up. Interesting. Might be running a higher wing, perhaps.
That's what I was about to say, because usually, even though there are drivers who run the same car, they're always going to just have slight setup tweaks. This happens a lot. Just you'll see it all over the place. Even go to like just any pub lobby, you're gonna see drivers who are, say, in the Porsche, in the Aston, the McLaren, Ferrari, whatever. You're gonna see them there, and they're always gonna have a slightly different setup. So that's probably what we're seeing here. I'm sure Rasco is probably eyeing up Wilson and saying, okay, what have you done that I didn't? And I'm sure Wilson's saying the same question, although it's more like, okay, how long can I keep you behind me?
Yeah, sector 1 and 3 versus the straightaway. That's your choice when you're setting up here. And the wisdom seems to be go with a higher wing and give up that couple of kilometers an hour on the straightaway. But oh boy, it's tempting to chase top speed on this track and end up with a car that you spend 2/3 of the race going, nope, stay back there, and then get out on the straightaway and you can breathe because you finally get to the limit.
I think the weather also has a very big contributing factor because, you know, geographically this is on a plateau. It's a very flat piece of land, and generally when you have that and not many trees, as we usually see, is you're going to have very high winds. When I say high winds, I mean relatively speaking. Usually have 1, 2, 3 kilometers an hour in our sessions, but sometimes you could see 10, 15. So while, you know, you could set up for the straight here, when you get to the corners and it's windy and God forbid it's a crosswind, the likelihood of your car just deciding that it does not want to live anymore and turn into a Beyblade gets even higher because you have a lack of downforce.
Yes, and absolutely on a windier circuit, you have to take that into consideration. It's, like I said, it's probably the best bet here anyway, because these high-speed corners through here really benefit from high downforce. That's where these cars generate, you know, the higher the speed, the more they generate. So this is where they're really at their best. Unlike maybe a Formula One car where the ultra high-speed sweepers are what you're looking for. But here, these really slow bits are where we get to see the driver's skill and then set up again. When they get out on the straightaway, we'll see who took the chances.
Well, I'm glad I'm not on circuit. I've never really vibed with Paul Ricard as well as I've had other circuits. I don't know. I guess it's just sort of the lack of change in it per se. With, you know, there's not really a lot of elevation. Everything's flat. Everything kind of looks the same. It feels like to me. What are your thoughts on it?
I always say it was half of it was designed with a noodle and the other half with a ruler, and I'm not a big fan of this layout. But if you put both parts of the chicane in the middle of the Mistral Straight in, then I love it, because that's a very, very high-speed chicane if you use both sides. And it really, I think, makes the track more interesting. But, as you mentioned earlier, these cars aren't hitting 300-plus kilometers an hour, even after the end of the full Mistral Straight. So it's not there, doesn't need to be there to slow them down. So I'd just like to see it there as a passing opportunity, or at least a shot. Some amazing camera work.
Yeah, you seem to have a more positive view on it than I do. I don't like any layout. I don't like this circuit, but that's just me. That's why I'm not out there. But these drivers, of course, have been practicing. I'm sure most of them have already driven on this circuit in some capacity, either in previous seasons of OOR or in other leagues, or even just the occasional pub lobby that actually decides to run something that is in Monza or Spa for the 80th time. Darren Wicks, despite the Audi's perceived shortcomings, as you've pointed out, Kevin, hasn't really bothered them all too much. Steadily in 13th position. You got Frizza just up ahead of him, and behind him, I believe, is Lanham. So not quite sandwiched between two Ferraris, but the bread hopefully is not closing in.
And after Hasser makes their stop, I think they're going to find themselves in a Pro-Am fight right in that group as well. I'm just noticing up at the front, Loverink has gotten it back up to over a second. I wonder if, as you were saying earlier, they might be driving just fast enough at this point. But it was down to a little less than 8 tenths, and it's looking like it's going to get interesting. Front 3 or front 4, actually, 5. We're spreading it out quite wide. So
Yeah, one thing
time, but none of them have stopped. I just realized.
I was about to say that, yeah.
7 or 8? Yeah.
Yeah, Wilson, Brooke, Hasser have come in, so the top 5 will have to come in. 6 minutes to go here. I think what's happening with Loverink and Clifford is they're playing chicken. They're seeing who goes in first. If Loverink goes in, Clifford is going to have to look at that and say, okay, I have 2 options. Either follow him in or try to put in one of the greatest in-laps that has ever been done at this circuit. So that way either A, I can hopefully come out ahead of him, or I can be close enough to maybe take advantage of the slipstream when it comes to the Mistral Straight. Obviously, we don't have the answers, and traffic will always play a part in it, but I think that's what they're doing. I think they're just waiting to see who blinks first.
I agree with that completely. I also think Loverink might be getting ready to come in, and that's why they're pushing a little harder to open up this gap, so that they've got that little bit to play with when they do win. So that might have part of it as well. Or Clifford has been pushing too hard and has lost almost half a second in the last couple of laps. Either way, 1.3 seconds going to the pits for these guys is an eternity.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And this is another case of equal machinery, slightly different setup and driver skill. And Loverink is coming into the pit lane. Clifford doesn't. So this is going to be Clifford's chance to attempt to open up this gap. And we also see Sanchez in the background diving to the pit lane. So your top three, Clifford, Landry, Carpenter, 4.5 minutes, 1 pit stop. Where are they going to come out? Now, the 1 marker is there on the right side next to the numbers. That is going to be, I think you said just for fuel, Kevin?
I believe so. I really should have checked before this, but I think it was just fuel, which means less than a second stationary. The reason I'm questioning it now is because that car was stationary for more than a second. But we'll find out soon enough here when they come back out.
Well, if
But
we,
yes, Clifford's got to be absolutely on the brink of disaster right now, trying to get to that pit lane as fast as they physically possibly.
Yeah, he's really gunning for it. It's gonna be tricky. So let's see. I'm looking through it right now. 1 stop. It's just fuel. So it is that stop, get a drop, and dip out. So Clifford has to do that. So does Landry. So does Carpenter. I'm glad that it's just the fuel and not tires, because if it was tires, it'd be there forever and it would just be a pain, especially in a 20-minute race. So
yeah,
if we open up the track map here, come on, there we go. You can see, obviously, we're hovering over Clifford right now. Loverink in the 52 is coming down the Mistral Straight. He's about to enter Sector 2, and the gap there is not quite what I thought it would be. I thought it might be a little bit bigger. But let's see if Clifford comes in, and depending on where his pit box is, will dictate how long this is going to take. And was he slowed down enough?
that was. I wondered the same thing. I think they're going to be okay, but that would. I'll bet they're having a little sweat about that one. It couldn't have been more than a kilometer or two below the limit.
Yeah, that's right on the line, and Landry, Carpenter as well. So, with Loverink coming through the final turn, Clifford he's got the last pit stall. I think Loverink will take over this position, no problem, ahead of the others who are just rejoining the circuit. Loverink, absolute confidence, just gets out ahead of Clifford, and that might be the closest the 999 gets to him all evening. At least for the first race.
It had to be looking hopeful there for a second for Clifford, at least seeing the car on the way out of the pits, but then the difference in speeds between coming out of the pits and coming down that relatively short but still straightaway that makes up the front straight here. It was an artificially close exit for a moment there. But actually 2.3 seconds afterwards, I think we're still pretty much exactly where we were. A little bit more of a gap than there was beforehand. So, as usual, Loverink has absolutely...
Yeah, another positive is that Clifford didn't lose any other positions. He was in second, came in, and was still second. So, I mean, obviously Landry and Carpenter went in or after him, but if they came in, a lap after, you wonder, would he be in the same position, or would he maybe be having a last-minute fight with one of these guys for their positions?
Well, everybody having stopped now, I think what surprises me is how spread out they are. For only a 20-minute race, we've only got a couple of real sort of positions yet to be decided here. There's a lot of 2 and 3 and 4 second gaps. And to be frank, that surprises me.
I know, it's I mean, maybe that comes down to setup, maybe that comes down to practice. Whatever the case is, it's quite interesting to watch. And speaking of interesting, Rasco, who is breathing down the neck of Wilson, actually finds himself with Tim Brook on his case, and Sanchez finding himself with Wilson. So those gaps have closed right up, and they've got one more lap to do it, because this is going to be the final lap of this first race. Lovereek has already started it. There's Keogh in 5th. He's sitting comfortably. Sanchez, Wilson, Rasco, and Brook. 2 McLarens fighting each other, and then it's a McLaren and a BMW. And actually, out of the final turn, I think Rasco's gotten the better of the 2 deals, because you can see Brook just disappearing into the back. I think he got a little bit loose there into turn 1.
Yeah, you shot your bolt. It's the last lap. Take your chance. And the thing is, if you don't get it right, then you only finish where you were going to finish anyways. I'm starting to think about the reverse grid here, and looking good for Kenneth Portis, it must be said. At this point, if everything finishes as it is, I believe this will put them on the pole for the second race, and then they can, from their position, hopefully everybody can watch the back of that car, that Honda, just disappear up the straight.
Is it top 10? Oh, it is top 10. I literally just read it there, because before in the past it's been top 12, so we've subtracted 2. So when we get to the checkered flag, we'll obviously be taking notes. Side by side, Sanchez on the inside has to play defensive, because Wilson got an excellent run up the Mistral with the slipstream, close enough to take advantage of that, but he's running out of corners, because we are slowly getting in towards that checkered flag. Of course, Lovereek just a few turns away from winning race number 1 here and taking back top spot after the couple weeks ago where he was unlucky, but out of that final corner he goes. Lovereek going to win race number 1. Right behind him is Jonathan Clifford, Michael Landry, Austin Carpenter just coming out of the final corner now, and Ben Keogh throwing the Aston Martin into the top 5. Wilson, one last late hurrah. It's not enough. The party has left without him. He'll be finishing 7th behind Sanchez. Wilson coming home in 7th as Keogh parks it up. It's Rasco in 8th, and whoa, Brook almost making contact. Keogh having a little fun there. Portis is in 10th. Frizza, the first car outside of the top 10, we'll be seeing taking part in that second round of qualifying. You can see the 2 McLarens parked up on the side. Darren Wicks in 12th. Then it's Lanham Hasser just home in 14th. Fernandez makes it 15th after he got around Hernandez early on in the race. And then it is Stapleton there, a lap down, I believe, getting through. Lloyd in the Porsche will be 17th. Then Doggins late to the party, but it's still going on. He'll be 18th once he crosses the line. Martinez, I think, just had a little bit of an incident out of the final corner. Can Pocket take advantage of that? No, we can't. Just a day late, $1 short, and a couple feet back. And that is going to finalize race number 1. So, your top 10 are going to stay in the pit lane. They are currently being instructed by the race director as to who is sticking here and who is going to be going out. But as we open the track map to see who's moving, we'll get a chance to see a full qualifying lap. So again, that the top 10, they're going to be chilling in the pit lane. They're not going to be doing anything. They're just going to be waiting. But everybody else, if one of your favorite drivers is if one of your favorite drivers, sorry, I don't know what happened. That was a weird glitch. Hernandez. Whatever driver you've got your eye on that's out on track, whatever position they finish in qualifying, just add 10 to it. And, well, that's where they're starting from race number 2. Thoughts on that first race and also that spin that we definitely didn't catch?
Definitely didn't see a spin during qualifying. Never happens, not at this level of driving. Actually, I'm hoping it's a glitch, but I'm looking at the timing tower, and it's saying number 1 is Clifford, and I do not see anywhere on that list our top finisher from the first race.
Lovereek is at 11th. He's right here. He's chilling.
Oh, okay. Oh, pardon me.
Yeah, this is the qualifying.
Oh, this is pit positions because they haven't moved. Never mind.
Right, exactly. Yeah, no,
There's a show that I haven't played this game since December. Is that showing now? Yeah, I think it might be.
Have we not been doing broadcasts since like January?
Oh yeah. Have I been paying attention? Apparently
No.
not. No. Spent too much time talking about these guys and complaining about trucks, I guess. But yeah, we've got them out. This is a weird situation to be in too. These people that are out qualifying now, because all of a sudden you're qualifying on a nearly empty track, and you're qualifying with people that if it's the sort of 11th to 21st, these are people you've got a chance to beat. You could finish in the top 4 or 5 in qualifying here, and that's it's points, and it's also pride. I mean, just being able to say, I finished 3rd in qualifying. You don't have to add the fact that the top 10 were parked in the pits at the time. You finished 3rd in qualifying. That's how that works. So it's a really interesting experience to be out here with sort of the pros, so to speak, parked and watching.
Yeah, it's all about framing. I learned that in my journalism class I had to take as a requirement. So yeah, depending on how you frame it, 3rd in qualifying looks really good. Hernandez starting the qualifying though for race number 2, the 888 amateur BMW. He's got I don't know, the BMW. It seems kind of middle of the road, I think, for Paul Ricard, unless I'm wrong, at least from what I've heard.
The thing with the BMW for me is it's been, and I think it's by design, it's supposed to be a middle of the road car. It's not supposed to be exceptional at anything, but it's supposed to be good at everything. And it's been that in various iterations through the updates and the physics changes. It's been that car a couple of times. Whether it is right now, it's a brick. This is Paul Ricard, and it's hard to make a brick go fast here. So maybe a little more challenging here, but overall it's been sort of one of those neutral cars that gets forgotten, and yet there's nothing bad about it. It's just not great at any one thing.
Well, if you're looking to make a brick fly fast, you might as well call up a certain Spartan. You may have something to say about it. I mean, it's green livery, so it could be close. Not the same shade, but I'd give it close enough. I'm sure you remember release day BMW, Kevin. Because I do.
One of the most, all my favorite, or all my top lap times in ACC are ruined because of the first 3 days that the BMW came out, because I used it everywhere, and now I can't match those times anywhere. But yes, it was an amazing thing until they fixed that diffuser.
I was using the Honda back when that was still acceptable. But I think it was still top of the pile, if I could be wrong. But yeah, I remember just being like, oh boy, time to go play ACC, the new BMW release. I'm not going to use it just yet. I still want to race on everything else. And then I go into the lobby, it's 30 cars, and like 25 of them are BMWs, and I'm like, should probably go fix that.
And everybody else is a lap down.
That was a fun day.
Fair credit where credit is due. They did admit that it was a programming error. It shouldn't have got through, but it was interesting.
For some reason I doubt that, and I only say that is because, and we're gonna get just completely different game here. League of Legends, whenever they release a new champion, for the first week and a half, 2 weeks, worst time, because they're broken and everybody's abusing it. Unless it was barred, that was a fun time because no one knew how to play him and he was terrible. But I'm gonna give Kunos the benefit of the doubt, be like, oh yeah, they programming error. But part of me is just like, was it though? Was it really a programming error?
I'll take your point, because every single car that has been released has been really, really good, and I get that. If you want to sign up manufacturers and have them use their car, make it quick, and then nerf it as necessary, because that looks like you took the real car and had to make it less powerful, and everybody likes that and they can use it in their ads. Yeah, fair point. They all come out of the box pretty hot and then get to. And I don't mind that. It gives everybody a chance to drive the new tool.
Yeah, I think that's another reason, is when they make it stronger, it's, the last, I mean, how many cars have been released that are part of DLC? They want you to buy the DLC, and they go, hey, it's going to be quick, and I don't know about you, but if you want to be quick, you should download the DLC. I mean, I'm not saying the game's pay to win, because it's not, but, you're kind of playing into the crowd. You're like, hey, you want to win? You should get this handy-dandy car right here because you'll be faster than everybody. And then, you kind of stare at it and you throw your hands up. You go, all right, fine, where's my wallet? And then, you give them however much, 10, 11, 12 bucks. And then you got the new fast toy. And then, like you said, Kevin, it eventually just gets nerfed.
Marketing works. What can I say? They spend a lot of money. I think I'm loving this. I'm just looking at the standings here, and it's great to see all these AMs and Pro-Ams and silver drivers up at the front fighting. Darren Wicks in our Audi. We've been talking about them all season about being the only Audi out there. Great paint, but only Audi out there. And to see them running around at the front of the quali makes me smile.
Probably the only time it's going to happen, unfortunately. But Darren Wicks will take that wherever he can. He's probably in the same boat where I'm at, where it's just like, you know what? Don't care. If there's a 1 next to my name, then I'm taking it. And he is 500ths ahead of Frizza, actually, which is surprisingly close.
And Frizza is no slouch. If you could finish qualifying and say that you beat Frizza, you have done a thing. You don't have to qualify that by saying the top 10 weren't running. That's a silver, at the very least, that's a silver rated driver against a Pro-Am. Just that would be enough, but Frizza, I would argue, is a borderline. Yeah,
I'd agree with that. And Lanham too can be a bit of a troublesome driver if you give him the space. Dave Hasser maybe. Pocket, obviously new to the series. Doggins, Fernandez, Stapleton as well, new. So still a lot to prove for themselves, and I'm sure hopefully we keep them around as these seasons progress. But we check in with Frizza right now, who is on an improvement, or not anymore. The Delta seems to just hover. If he can just find a 10th, though, he should be able to take over that top spot. Of course, he'd be starting 11th on the grid, so this will be his final lap coming up. And thankfully, nothing like Formula 1 where you see drivers backing off when they have a lap to go to recharge. Yeah. We don't have such things, but crosses the line, does not improve. Darren Wicks, though, I think, was on an improvement. He was, but he just drops it 5 thousandths. If you want consistency, I think he just found it.
Oh, these guys are pushing. You can tell. Yeah, they don't. They've got this chance. They're half a second off the pole, 1 second off the pole. This is not a gap that a lot of them spend every race getting. So good on them. What's going to be fun, oh boy, is when this race starts and these top 10 who are fighting amongst themselves get rushed from behind by some of the fastest drivers on the internet. Yeah. It is terrifying, and trying to focus out the front window, which is what you should be doing, and just letting the fast guys pass you where they may, is much easier said than done.
It really is. And right now, someone who's pushing a lot, Larry Lanham, he's got a few 10s. I think he was just up into 4/10 territory, which he's going to need that amount and a little bit of change, though, if he wants to take pole position here. Darren Wicks has thrown in the towel early. He was improving as well, but unfortunately, I think he went wide, completely deleted his lap time. Lanham has picked up a couple of 10ths out of the final quarter, pushing to the line. What's it gonna be? It's just under 500ths of a second. Darren Wicks skirting by the skin of his teeth there. Frizza, he's relatively level with his Delta. Fernandez just up ahead. He's not going to be able to improve. Can Frizza spoil the party? That's going to be a question. He's only 5 thousandths behind Lanham, but he's not going to do it. Just misses out, and it just leaves Andre Lloyd out there for the final car for DRC.
And 52 thousandths of a second covering the top 3.
Can Lloyd get higher?
Close as.
Ooh, that was looking good there. Lloyd, though, makes it 4th. So now, as we get ready for the second race, we'll hold off on the grid walk because we're not going to need it. However, we have 2 minutes, 40 seconds to set up. What will then happen is the race director will come over the mic and will be calling out those drivers from the top 10 of last race in reverse order. So 10th will be first, 9th will be second, 8th will be third, so on and so on, which means that we are going to be seeing, as Kevin so diligently reported, Portis starting up top in love rank, starting from 10th. And then the rest of the field is going to come through. Kevin, we've got a lot to unpack, and we've got about 40 minutes to do it.
This is always, in my mind, this is the more interesting race, the second one. It's longer, so there's actually time for more strategy here. We saw a bit of pit strategy in the first one, but 40 minutes, 1 liter, pop that in anywhere you want. It becomes more of a strategic choice. It gives you got twice as long, so they're going to have 21 or 22 laps to figure this out. So you don't have to go 3 wide through Signa at the first lap this time. You did last time in the first race, but this time you don't. So hopefully they'll remember that. But the big thing for me is that reverse grid at the front. The accordion effect it's going to happen. Everybody knows it's going to happen. So if they do this right, it should be every bit as clean as the first race was, which was, I gotta say, a remarkably clean race.
Yep, and if you look at the weather, we've got a 12-kilometer crosswind. So how does that play in with the arrow? We talked about it in the first race with a 1 kilometer that doesn't do anything, and now we're pumping up the volume a little bit. You know, normally these knobs go to 11, but we found a 12th one somewhere in there. So it'll be interesting to see what last-minute setup changes people are making. Whether it be tire pressures, whether it be aero, suspension, ducks, whatever it may be. Hopefully they're all in a row as we get to the final 30 seconds, the first chance for drivers to get these cars started unless they want to start from the pit lane. And, well, once that happens, we'll be giving these guys a moment to get themselves sorted out for the next 40 minutes. Every time we've had these super sprints, they've been exciting.
Never fails. The drivers have a sort of love-hate relationship with them, and I don't think that will ever change. I think drivers have love-hate relationships with everything, but they either love this or they hate it beyond hate. And I don't. I like it, but I generally, other than that one unfortunate incident, I generally get to start in the back anyway, so it was never a big deal for me. And in fact, funny you mentioned earlier, we went from the top 12 to the top 10. It was the top 12 that got me on the pole that night. So if I didn't vote for top 10, I should have.
Yeah, well, Portis, though, is happy with top 10 because that puts him way up front as he pulls way ahead, and everyone else being called forward. There's, I believe, Tim Brook in the background. He's going to be brought up to second, and Doggins as well just behind him. Or not Doggins, excuse me. That was one of the other McLarens. I didn't quite see who it was, but I'm fairly certain. We should be seeing Clifford pull through soon. There is one of the McLarens. I'm fairly certain that's Landry. If not, it's someone else. There's Jonathan Clifford, number 2 driver, and the number 1, the main man of the hour. Not Portis. It is going to be Skylar Lovering lining up 10th overall, and while these drivers get sorted out, of course, quick shout out Simrigs sponsoring another season of the Sprint Series. I won't talk about them all too much, of course. We've had plenty of time to discuss them at the start of the broadcast, and of course we'll see them again at the end. But out of Melbourne, great stuff from them. Everything you would need, birthday, anniversary, or even just you got some cash you want to throw around, they'll be happy to give you some business. And of course, if you're a Patreon member, you guys are going to get some nice little discounts in your purchases, so do take advantage of that. And of course, thank you to those people who are Patreon members. You guys are great. Love having you around. But we'll head back out on circuit here as we head down what feels like Sunset Boulevard with how long this back straight is. You can see it was not Loverink. It was the Honda of Portis, then Brook, then Rasco. And we are seeing these drivers who were a part of Q2 coming through, and I believe that is Stapleton. So all 20, we've only lost one driver here. Kevin, any sort of final thoughts before we get ready for this second race?
The thought I was actually having is way at the back of the field. I noticed in the first race, there was 2 or 3 people back there made a conscious decision to lay off on the start, let the mayhem occur, and then try and drive through. There wasn't an accident. There wasn't any mayhem. They didn't get any positions. So I'm interested to see if they'll try the same thing this time, or whether they'll be a little more aggressive, thinking that they're going to have to make them up because they're not going to get any freebies. So that's what I'm watching.
That'll be very interesting to see, and it's also going to be interesting to see how do drivers like Lovebrink and Clifford pick their way through the field. I mean, we're so used to seeing them up front and just completely running away with it. How does having slower drivers in front of you play into the strategy, and of course double the race length? So more than enough time to get the moves going as we are lining up 2 by 2. I think that first corner, despite, well, now 19 cars, it's going to be interesting to see how this all pans out into turn number 1. But as we head around that final corner, it is side by side. 19 cars on the grid, only 2 retirements this evening. Reverse grid order, gonna have to get these gaps closed up, but it's all really gonna come down to how these first couple of corners go. Under the banner we go, ladies and gentlemen. A delayed start because of the positioning, and it's green once again here at Paul Ricard. It is going to be Sanchez that gets a good breakaway, but Rasco sits right in front of him, and he has to lay off the throttle. There's Andrew Wilson in the Golf McLaren getting swallowed up 3 wide as we head to turn number 1 in the background. Portis taking full advantage of this, everything he can. 2 McLarens come together. One of the Lamborghinis, that was the the triple 9 of Clifford making contact with one of the spinning cars, but thankfully did not get caught up in all of that. He gets away scot-free, and a much more chaotic start. Darren Wick's bleeding positions right now. He is way down the grid and continues to lose more as we see Stapleton arrive on the scene. Lloyd in the pits early on, and Pocket just throws it away on his own, but this race is underway.
And yes, much messier than the first one, exactly the opposite of what I suspected. It looked to me at first glance like most of that was self-inflicted. We'll see here. The one that got the worst luck out of that was absolutely Clifford. They had made a wonderful start. They made the right decision. They were 3 wide going into the first tight area. They said no, backed out, and then unfortunately got caught up in somebody else's accident. But I think here.
That was a little risky.
Yeah, I think Clifford got away with very small amount of damage to the front right of that car, so they should be okay.
Yeah, it was double side by side heading down the Mistral Straight between Frizza, Clifford, Lanham, and Fernandez. Fernandez had a run on the inside, but thankfully was cognizant of the closing up of the corner and decided to back out. However, Wilson, despite getting caught up in some early chaos, is making a bit of a charge, a bit of a comeback, as Hernandez is spooked wide. Maybe he's staring in his mirrors a little bit too long. Later on the brakes, and we do see, I believe that was Carpenter who came into the pit lane, Wilson as well. So this is the very early pit stop. They want to get this done and spend the rest of the race out there on the on maybe an open track, Hasser as well. But with the tire deg, is that really the smartest decision?
In a 40-minute race, I don't think that should be a problem. There will be some wear at the end, but I don't think it's going to be all that significant. Apparently, they've decided that, especially with clear track, they're less likely to slide around, maybe. And they might have to drive a little nicely, but I think 40 minutes they should be.
Interesting. And we only have weather 30 minutes out. I'm not saying there's a possibility of rain, but you never know. Weather gets a little bit hectic, as Clifford made a move there on Frizza for position number 8. Almost ran it wide and lost the position, but thankfully had enough of a gap. And speaking of gaps, Lovebrink now finds himself with a front row seat to these two. It's Brooke and Landry side by side at the end of it. The 404 BMW on the outside. That's going to invite Lovebrink later on the brakes into the turn. How did he not make contact? I'll never know. But the man, the myth, the legend, with all of his experience, keeping it out of the back of his opponents so he doesn't cop a penalty, and damage as he is losing some time because I don't know what's happening to him. He's getting a little bit squirrely. Portis, in the meantime, has gone from first to third. Rasco leads the way. Sanchez ahead of him. Keo right behind. The Honda, despite all the praise we've given it, has not bolted the way that we may have expected from past patches.
Yeah, it's still in the top 3, and as long as that thing is close behind you, it's going to catch you, as we're watching right now. It is... oh, there's the answer to our question. They're playing it. They're taking it very, very easy, letting off very early. It looks to me like they've settled into the draft here, and they're hoping to work with Sanchez to catch up to Rasco. And hopefully, from their point of view, stay ahead of those fast folks coming up behind them.
Yeah, Keo was in the slipstream as well. He couldn't take advantage of that behind them in the meantime. However, Tim Brook having to dip around Darren Wicks, who was one of your early pit stop players, love rank into the pit lane very early. So your championship leader has come in, has gotten the splash he is needed, and should be coming out onto a relatively clear track, as we do see Andrew Wilson blow by him full throttle. So now Love Rank playing the long game because he knows that one thing is going to happen, and that is everyone else has to pit. Sanchez with the Honda, I forgot the manufacturer here, on the outside though, but he is going to play a defensive line as we get towards the end. There's Keo and the chasing Aston Martin, keeping a modest race on his hands, and he looks to the inside, defended well by Portis. Now, what's the plan going to be? Does he maybe slow up a little bit, try to get a straighter exit out of the corner? That is the plan. It doesn't work out quite as well as Portis still searching for a way through. Sanchez sort of, not really even defending, he's kind of just driving his own thing, and it just happens to be the worst possible choice for Portis, which is backing him up into Keo, who looks for a late move. Down the inside, doesn't happen. There's not enough room there. He knows better. He's going to set up wider again. Is the straighter exit going to help him? No, it is not, because Portis, slightly different line, carries more speed through that final corner, and he'll actually pull away. And in the slipstream of Sanchez, he's peering to the inside, but thinks better of it. Oh, and he gets hit from the back. It is Keo going into the rear end there of the Honda. Just spun around. I think Portis stood on the brakes a little bit because he slowed far more than I would have expected just there. So that's probably why Keo went to the back of him.
I think the two of them were being held up a little bit by the car in front, and yeah, whether it was somebody thought somebody had a better braking point than they were going to, or just don't brake themselves. Unfortunate. I know there was absolutely no intent between those two. They're great friends on and off the track.
Yep, it's going to be unfortunate. So we'll see what the penalty is given. Of course, if it isn't given during the race, we may get it after the race. And from there, of course, if we need to update, we shall. Doubt it, though. But we will be continuing on this race. I just realized the driver we lost was Martinez. Apparently he was hungry, which I feel. We do see side by side though with the not Love Rink, with Clifford rather, and Tim Brook. They're doing battle. Clifford's getting held up quite a lot despite the obvious pace difference.
Oh, I love it. Make them fight. Make them fight for that position. Yes, they're faster than you. Make them prove it. Make them go around. You do not have to give up these positions just because they're a pro-rated driver. Drive for everything you're worth.
Yep, it's always nice to see a driver who may be considered slower, sort of just put the foot down and say, nope, I'm gonna hold on to this. If you want it, come and take it. You know where to find me. You know what I look like. It's time to put all those skills to the test, because if you're Clifford, well, there wasn't a lot of skill testing in that first race, because no matter what you did, Loverig just pulled away. We've got Lanham in the pit lane, Landry coming out of the pit lane. So it leaves 12 drivers who have yet to pit. These two are part of that camp. Clifford starting to get a little bit of extra pace. He's going to use that to his advantage. Try to get Brook offline, but nerves of steel, clear concentration there from the 404. Now we head on to the Mistral Straight. Is the move on? Is there enough of a gap for that slipstream to take effect?
There is, I noticed, more damage than I thought on the front of this Lamborghini. The whole front splitter is looking damaged. That's usually not a good sign, but they're definitely closing. The Lamborghini is quick, and it really does seem to do well in the slipstream. And now it's let's play the are we going to go too wide game.
No, they're not. Brook, I think, is going to
no.
back out. Oh, no, he's not backing all the way out, actually. Side-by-side contact. How did Clifford not spin from that? That was right in the quarter panel. He should have been gone.
They both could have easily gone spinning off into the wall on that one, and it's not over yet. But that was an assertive move. That sort of thing you get when you're with these reverse grid races, too. These fast drivers they're watching their win drive away from them, so they get a little more I don't want to say pushy, but I'll say assertive again.
Yep, and more assertive driving there is it is Loverink going down the inside of Carpenter at the Mistral Straight. He's going to go up to position 13. He's still got about 30 minutes to go here. Plenty of time. The guys in front, of course, will have to come into the pit lanes as Dan Fernandez decides now's the time for him to make his exit stage right. And it is stage right. I do have experience, and it's always from the perspective of the actors. Everyone else deciding that they want to stick in the spotlight a little bit longer. Another lap. Doggins, one of them, the 55. In position 8 is currently leading amateurs, but of course when he comes into the pits, I think Fernandez may take that back. Hernandez, though, right behind him. So this is going to be a case of which one of these three decides to stay out the longest.
I must say that gold and copper livery is stunning.
Absolutely.
Very easy on the eyes. Very impressive.
Especially with the sunset, it makes it shine just all that much more. And sure, if I was cranking everything up to max, it'd look absolutely stunning. Might spend the whole race just looking at it. But we can't do that. We got to look at other drivers as Loverink starts to go on the attack of Landry. You can see the experience coming out to play, how much different the lines are going to be. Loverink, I believe, is going to carry just a few kilometers more as we head on to the Mistral Straight. That slipstream, of course, Landry knows what's coming, as does Loverink. It's going to go back and forth because of net coding, and he is going to pull out of the slipstream about halfway down the straight. And as we get closer and closer, that right-hander, surprisingly, does not have the pace he would have liked. He lifted a little bit. He has to keep the Lamborghini held down. The Bull wants to dig the horns in to the McLaren, but that's not going to happen. But he is going to open the door. There's a little bit of contact there with Landry, who is going to be just nudged wide. Loverink, another position on this conquest towards position number 1. 28 minutes, 10 seconds to go here in race number 2. And if he keeps this pace up, well, he should be at the front of the grid in no time.
That was a watch this, I'm coming through moment. That's what a driver lets you know they're coming, and you have two choices. Max Verstappen-esque, one might even say, is that you can wreck us both, or you can let me lead this race. And that was definitely one of those moves.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with it. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that kind of driving. It's how you win races.
Oh, absolutely. It's, as long, in my book, as long as you're not shoving people out of the way, if your name is at the top by the time the checkered flag falls, then hey, you win. So it doesn't matter if you lead every lap, or you lead the last lap, or you just manage to get a nose ahead of them right at the line. A win's a win, as long as you get it clean. And, well, Loverink is one such driver, as he is now looking at Craig Pocket for position number 9. And I don't think I've ever had to express the soon-to-be action of the Pocket versus Loverink battle. And I'm sure both of these guys are in the same boat, as are you and everyone else watching, Kevin, as Loverink slipstreaming and pulling out to the side. I would not be surprised if Craig backs out of this one early, although I don't think he's going to. He may have to, he may want to stick with it. They're side by side, a little bit favoring, and as I say that,
there it is.
Yep, backs out at the end.
That was the right move. Fight until you're beat, and then make sure you don't cause a wreck. It's fun fighting with the fast guys, even if it is only for a couple corners until they get around you. And they did it exactly right there. They defended their position, but when they were beat, they let it go.
Yep, and now Pocket is going to fall into the hands of the fellow McLarens of Landry and Carpenter. And keep in mind, the 713, he still has to pit, so he should be coming in relatively soon. Right on board here with Landry. He'll take an inside line here, but he may have to go around the outside, but you can see the line there from Pocket. It's extremely on the inside, and I thought maybe he wanted to go into the pits, but he is just going to have to wait. Now it's going to be a drag race down the front straight into turn number 1. McLaren versus McLaren. You can see Lovebrink has already left the scene. Into turn number 1 we go. It is side by side. Pocket staples it to the inside. That does give Carpenter a chance to catch up because Landry not expecting it. But surprisingly, despite that, these three stay where they're at. Carpenter can't gain off of it. Neither does Landry. And for Pocket, well, you get the prize of saying, hey, I defended against one of the best drivers in North America and I didn't lose anything.
Yep, and still doing it. That is an ultimately defensive line through that corner, and it's working. And once again, as long as you're not chopping off people's noses, as long as you're only making one move in the corner, it is all perfectly reasonable racing. Although I suspect it's probably done coming down this straightaway.
Well, maybe. We saw Lovebrink a few laps ago have a run. And almost taking someone out as they both went side by side, and now Landry and Pocket will be side by side. That slipstream playing in beautifully. You can see the banana McLaren making like one and splitting from the party, and so does Carpenter take advantage of such an opportunity. So Pocket backs out, gives up the position, says that's fine guys, I don't really care, I have to still come in anyway, so you're either going to pass me on track or you're going to pass me in the pits. Landry and Carpenter more than happy to take those away from him. No problems at all.
Unquestionably. That's good driving all around. Being passed by fast drivers is a skill. And doing it without causing a wreck was really well done in that instance. So good on Pocket's part.
Yep, and Keogh now is going to be our front and center man, as he was drifting a little bit, it looked like a few corners ago, because now Sanchez starting to get a little bit of fire there behind the Aston Martin, and just behind them is going to be Jonathan Clifford, that 999 Lamborghini. If I had to bet on it, I think he's been probably streaming for the last 8 hours, as he seems to do every day, which I respect, and probably given his viewers one hell of a show. But out of the corner, Sanchez losing out, and you can see just how much that is going to benefit Clifford. He just blows by Sanchez like he's standing still with the slipstream, and it makes it even faster. Light speed engaged there for the 999. Gets to the end of the straight, a slight lift, maybe a little bit of a break, downshifting, Sanchez with a run, can't get by, sideways for Clifford. Look at the lock there on the front of the Lamborghini, somehow holding on Clifford. I mean, it's not what you want to do, but it's a damn great showing of skill.
Oh, that was an impressive slide, but that frustrating moment where you pass somebody and then do something like that and give it back. That's swearing, and not necessarily quietly and under your breath. Calling yourself out. Start calling yourself by your own middle name. Oh, and in response, dive for the pits. That's interesting.
Maybe he's doing this as a slight reset, you know, just a nice little stroll down pit lane and grab some fuel, get back out there. I mean, you can take pride in knowing that you didn't crash the thing, but of course, like you said, Kevin, this is a case of swearing at yourself, kicking yourself. You know, you had the move done, you were already free. How did you lose it there? So Clifford going to take this time to mentally get back into racing form. He's not one that's easy to falter. And I'm sure that is no different as he'll park up in that very last spot. Tim Brooks going to be coming out. Doggins is coming into the pit lane. I'm fairly certain that the BMW of Brook will be taking this position over. Yes, he will. Just going to pass by and out onto circuit. As he comes out into traffic, Wilson goes through. Brook picking up a stop-go 30. Uh-oh. Is this the retirement? Yes, it is. Stop-go 30. Is going to force the 404 into doing just that. That webpage taken down. Another casualty on the night.
You hate to get penalized on pit speeding. That one is because there's nobody to blame but yourself on that one. As much as you can try, that's on you. So that can be really, really frustrating, especially if you're already having a tough time.
Yeah, it's not what you want, especially with a race that is going to be 20 minutes, 20 minutes remaining rather. So that's just a nice kick in the jaw there. And we said it earlier that someone may have also sped into the pit lane, but that wasn't the case. But that is checked automatically. That is not done manually. So when you speed into the pit lane, that is the game detecting it. And little fun fact about that is the way the game checks it is not the front of the car, but it's actually the rear axle. So when that crosses the pit line, what is designated as the pit line, if it's above, when that rear axle crosses, that's a speeding. That's a speeding penalty. So if you've ever wondered, not that it really matters because I don't think we're, necessarily looking at where the rear is. We're just saying, well, wherever the car is. Now you know. It's that rear axle that determines whether or not you're speeding.
I also know that in real life, that is where the transponder is on a lot of race cars because it's the least likely place for it to get knocked loose. So there's a lot of cars where it's either in the rear wheel well or in that motor assembly rear axle area for that reason.
Well, there you go. We have actual nice reasons here. Yeah, I just thought it was a coding thing. I didn't realize there was actually an explanation. So thank you, Kevin, for that one. Again, this is me proving why Kevin is such a valuable asset to this broadcast because he's the brains. I'm the guy who can talk really well.
I found it out 2 weeks ago on a YouTube video, so it may not even be true.
Well, you can't put something on the internet if it isn't true, Kevin. Come on, you should know that.
Well, I've said it again, so now it's twice on the internet. Now it must be true.
Oh yeah, super duper true. Absolutely, you're right. We're internet sleuths over here at OOR. That's why they pay us. Oh goodness. One thing I wanted to point out while we had the time, I was looking at the wind direction, and obviously it's obviously when you're looking at it from the camera, it might look weird, but the way it's displayed is dependent on, if you're in the upper right, how the driver is oriented, so how the car is. So coming down this part of the circuit, it's a tailwind, so there's a little bit of a boost. I was surprised, though, because I was thinking down the Mistral Straight it would be a headwind, which would slow people down, but it's actually a crosswind. So you wonder how much different this race would be playing out if the wind was just shifted a little bit.
The crosswind gets brutal at the end of the straight when you're already so on the limit in that corner, 260, 270 kilometers an hour, 280 going in. And with a crosswind there, whether it's blowing from the inside or the outside, that's just going to make that corner even more of a guessing game than it already is.
Yep, and you can look it.
Oh,
is it actually a head? Well, not a super headwind, but it's crossing up a bit. That's okay. So I was reading it completely incorrectly then, because I was banking it off of the. I guess it is the camera angle. That's really strange. So it is a headwind, and I think you can see that cross breeze coming into play. Actually, Hernandez getting a little bit loose.
13 kilometers an hour, you will feel, like you mentioned in the first race, 1 or 2 kilometers is sort of the regular wind speed in this game. You never notice it. At least I never have. But 13K, you're going to notice that. That's 8 miles an hour for our American friends.
Thank you. I was gonna look it up, but I'm lazy. So thank you, Kevin, for being my converter. Listen, the only thing I know is that -40 Celsius and -40 Fahrenheit are the same. That's the one conversion I can do immediately. I know that I weigh 62 kilos because at the gym, some of the weights go up by 10. And I look at the number, and I'm like, okay, so I'm probably about here. So I'm kind of right. I don't know. I don't use metric, despite playing games that use metric. But we don't need to get into that. Anywho,
it's only 97% of the world that does. It's all right. You guys will be fine.
There's other countries that use imperial. I forget which ones, but they exist. It's not just us.
About 1 or 2%. Yes.
Yeah, roughly. What is that in? Is that imperial 1 or 2%, or is that metric 1 or 2%?
It's metric because it goes to 100 like a normal counting system. But they're pit stopping. We should talk about the race.
Yeah, so Frizza's pit stopping here. So this will be the penultimate pit stop. Keo is still out there. That will promote Loverink into position number 2. And depending on Keo, I'm not saying he'll be able to make it out ahead of Loverink, but if he did, I would be amazed. I would just give him driver of the day for that, if we had such a vote. Being able to pit ahead of someone like Loverink and come out ahead of him would definitely be something to write home about, but that's going to be a little bit tricky because, well, Loverink is quick, and it seems like it doesn't matter the distance. He's going to catch up to you eventually.
I'm waiting for them to cross the next line because, according to the tower, Frizz's got 13.5-second lead, and they've stopped? I'm not sure if I'm buying that, so I'm going to wait to see until these guys cross another timing line to see what the real gap is.
Well, let's actually open up
it's already fixed.
Yeah, the track map will tell us. You can see those horizontal lines. Those are the sectors, and there happens to be 2 of them. 3 of them, if you want to count the start-finish line. There's one obviously here on the Mistral Straight. You can see one just where the number 8 Ferrari of Lanham is, and then of course that start-finish line. You can see the 921 of Hasser in the pit lane. There was a slight yellow, and I assume that was him. We didn't see what that was for. Hopefully it was nothing too major. But as we check back in with Keo, he is staying out. He is really trying to make this work. Last lap for him is a 54.94. I want to see what Loverink runs on this lap, because depending on how quick it is and how consistently he can do it, that's going to dictate Keo's next move.
35 seconds, I think he's already beat, I suspect. But it'll be really interesting to see where they all come out. Clifford has only managed to get themselves up to 5th. Yep. That's a little surprising. Loverink has shot to the front like a cork out of a bottle of water. Yeah, skill floats, and the fast guys are heading to the front. But it seems in this instance like Clifford is getting caught on something. That damage is holding.
54.92. So he's faster by 200ths, which is odd considering that usually when we see him, trying to catch someone in front, he's ahead by miles.
Keo will be running on lower fuel, and yes, he just got the bit between his teeth, and he's going all out. The Aston is a great car on these fast tracks. It just doesn't like slow corners because it doesn't have any acceleration in the low gears.
Yeah, I've had plenty of experience in the Aston. It's one of the cars of all time.
It just takes a while to get started, but here on these fast tracks, it's a joy to drive. It's a very simple drive, a relatively simple car to drive hard.
It is, yeah. I always put it as a good starter-ish car for people who want to get something that's. So it's sort of like the Audi, kind of just good at everything, but doesn't necessarily excel.
Yeah, and it doesn't have a lot of bad habits, which is you're trying to learn this game, because let's face it, the learning curve in this game is pretty much straight up.
I was about to say it's like a learning cliff sometimes, especially depending on the car. Don't make the mistake I did when I started playing, where I was like, oh, I'll go for the McLaren. That's a great idea. It's probably why I have a lot of resentment towards it. I picked it up a little too early. Maybe if I did something different. But anyways, we'll check back here. We have Frizza ahead of Lloyd. This is obviously lap traffic. And then we have, Loverink continuing. So Keo just did a 55.27 on his lap. And Loverink is going to put in a 54.68. So he's getting faster. Loverink, where is everybody in? Oh, he's all by himself. There's nobody. There's the 14 of Wicks ahead, but that's a long way up the road. So right now, he's just moving. He doesn't have anything to worry about. Nobody's attacking. Nobody's defending. There's no slipstreams. The drivers who are close to him are well behind, and the man who is currently going to be second to his first once Keo comes in is Landry. Then there's Carpenter and Clifford. They're all relatively close to each other, but nobody's in striking distance of anyone.
And Loverink is once again dominated. When you can drive from 10th to 1st, oops, tap there. But if you can drive from 10th to 1st in 29 minutes, that's a statement.
Absolutely, it is.
Especially on this track. Especially on this
Oh
track.
yeah.
As fast as much as there is draft, you have to be close to get that draft, and closing those gaps is the tough.
Yep. So we did see Rasco there just sort of drop the shoulder and go down the inside of Fernandez. The 26 not spun out, thankfully. But Rasco will say thank you for the 10th position. It wasn't intentional, of course. And he's going to start pulling away here from the 26. Fernandez, though, leading the amateur class well ahead of Hernandez, who is very early on in his lap. And then there's Doggins, who's, I think, not too far behind Hernandez. Ooh. So maybe... Oh, no, never mind. The gap's a lot bigger than I thought it was. But yeah, for Fernandez, though, that's really good news because, again, he's also by himself, so he doesn't have to worry about being attacked. He doesn't have to worry about attacking. So for him, it's just about being rock steady until the checkered flag drops.
I think your prediction about tire wear might be right. There's a couple of these cars are starting to get quite a bit squirrely. They're chasing themselves around the track and starting to fight the track instead of each other. I didn't expect it, but there's more than a few of them are dancing out there.
Yep, Sanchez looking to do a little bit of salsa with Lanham if the time calls for it. Lanham's last lap of 56.78, Sanchez with a 54.36. So maybe being caught up, and now slipstream down the front stretch. It is going to be the standard racing line as Sanchez just tags the back of Lanham, goes from one wall to the next, and the 21 gets ahead, but it is the number 8 going from 8th position down to 12th, and I don't think he's going to be all too pleased with that. I don't think it was intentional, but it was certainly not what he was expecting.
No, that was... a low expectation of success move, I'm going to say. And yeah, Lanham's got every right to be less than pleased with that.
Yeah, but think about it. Sanchez, with the slipstream he was pulling in, I think he just stepped out of it a little too late because he had the pace, got right up, pulled to the left, and I think just barely tagged the left side of Lanham. So it didn't look like he was trying to pit maneuver. I think it was just sort of some speed that neither were expecting. Yeah,
and Lanham's just a bad luck magnet this season. I really hope they have better luck next season because they've been 16 to 20 centimeters away from some great finishes, and then stuff like that happens. So
yep, absolutely. Last lap, Keogh is a 59.09, and Lovering drops a 54.97. I am surprised Keogh has stayed out as long as he's had. I don't know if I necessarily think it's a great idea, but he's kept the gap relatively stable for the last several tours of this. So maybe he's seeing this and keeping an eye on the relative and planning the pit stop accordingly, but I don't know. It's going to be a late pit stop if I had to bet on it, especially as he's being slightly held up there by Pocket.
That's the thing. He's getting into the lap traffic now, so I think that might be the sign that it's time to pull over. And just a quick mention too of this livery. That's impressive. Well done. That is a glorious paint job.
Isn't that symbol on the state flag of not Arizona, New Mexico? I've seen that symbol before. That's right, you're not an American, you're Canadian. No, I've seen that before. I'm fairly certain. I could be wrong. I'm going to check because I'm curious. Because we do have some drivers that do have... it is New Mexico. I was right.
Oh, there you go.
So
we've got
seen
some Arizona liveries as well. So.
Yeah. The Bricks Racing of Frizza is a livery themed to Arizona's state flag. I don't think we've seen any other states. Of course, you can see the yellow and red bands symbolizing the sort of the sunrise of Arizona that apparently they're known for. I'm surprised there aren't flames on it because of how hot it is, but I guess a cactus will do just fine.
The scorching rays of heat that some people call summer, yes. But we are less than 7 minutes left, so yeah, Keo is. I'm interested to see when they're actually going to come in. Are they going to do the second to last thing, which used to be the meta? Come in with 1 lap to go, essentially. It'd be interesting to see if they try that.
I wouldn't know, because right now we got to look at these two, Clifford and Carpenter. Clifford, of course, finishing P2 in the last race. Right now he's looking at P5, unless Keo somehow ends up way behind, but he is getting some speed here. Slightly different line, and right on the back of Carpenter, has to let off the throttle a little bit, let the Lambo coast, so we can get as much of the slipstream as possible. Important to not be too close. You may make contact heading onto the back straight. You might also be able to give the slipstream up on the latter stages of this part of the circuit, but he's going to calmly pull out to the right side. It is going to be side by side. The McLaren starting to fall back and is going to fall away. Carpenter does not want to fight this. He knows who Clifford is. He knows what he's capable of, and decides it's better for him to just let the position go and maybe try to follow Clifford to catch up to Landry.
And yeah, Clifford's not pulling away. You gotta stick with this, especially because we saw earlier Clifford has had a little slide after passing somebody. They are carrying a tiny bit of front end damage here, which can make a difference. So maybe not quite as bulletproof as they are most weeks. So maybe this week's your chance.
Yeah, but keep in mind, Landry comparatively towards Clifford, it is a stark difference. The last lap was 0.3 in favor of Clifford. We'll see what it is. It's probably going to be a little bit closer. It's a 54.8 for both of them, but that, of course, you have to keep in mind, Clifford was dealing with getting around Carpenter, so that's not quite the true pace, but he is getting closer to Landry than I was expecting, because I thought he would be a little bit further back.
Oh, it's head down, bit between the teeth, all the sayings you can think of, hammer time, whatever you want to call it. He's watching his championship get away. There's already a big gap, but if Loverink finishes first again and Clifford is stuck in 4th or 5th, that's just that gap getting bigger and bigger.
Yep, Sanchez, the sun in his eyes, it's gonna just completely blind him into the corner as Frizza picks up a drive-through for that. I mean, evasive maneuvers, but he picks up a drive-through for track limit. I mean, rules are rules, but I think that's a little ridiculous.
I'd want to see that one again, because to me it looked like they really outbraked themselves, and if that's the case, then
too far
it is
back.
what it is. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see that one in the replay, because getting a drive-through for either evasive maneuver or a mistake is always annoying. Getting a drive-through because you're pushing too hard and went too wide, that's on you. But when you do something like that, whether it's a mistake or the result of another driver, get penalized for it is pretty nasty.
Yeah, I might have been braking later, but then I don't know. Well, obviously drivers will be dealing with that with stewards and race directors when the time comes. I was really expecting Frizza and Sanchez to be battling for that position.
The one other thing to consider with that drive-through is we are at a point where they're going to finish the race before 3 laps have elapsed, so they can finish the race with that drive-through, and it'll be added as a time limit.
Yeah, but is that what you want to do, or do you lose less time driving through the pit lane? Because if I'm not mistaken, I'm fairly certain a drive-through is only 30 seconds.
Now that I mentioned it, I'm not sure, but it is an option. So.
Well, it'll be something that Frizza does not have a lot of time to sort of think about as we get closer and closer. Right now, Stapleton starting to come under fire from Darren Wicks in the 14 Audi. Stapleton going to go to the left there. Not going to defend it, I think, at the end of the straight. I think he is just going to let the Audi through, but we'll see what it looks like. Into the lift we go, and Stapleton carrying speed around the outside. I'm fairly certain that's within track limits, because Paul Ricard does not know what track limits are. And we do see Loverink entering the frame. That's surprising. Keo finally comes in. That's what I was going to check. I was just about to click on him. I saw the in on the location, and now he's in the pit lane. So, we look to Loverink. Where is he at? He's... Oh, with lap traffic, this might be very close.
Oh, especially with lap traffic making some errors. That'll slow you down.
Yep,
Stayed out of the way. Beautiful. Absolutely blue flagged, done exceptionally well. But, oh, they're halfway down the straight, too. No, they're well back.
No, I don't think...
We can try and create all the tension we want out of that. It's not going to be there. That's been ways back.
Yep, Keo comes out P2. So Landry is right behind the Aston Martin. So this might be the battle to watch. As we're on the final lap of the race, when they come back around, it is going to be the checkered flag. Keo has to hold off Landry for a lap. Clifford in the background. You mentioned it earlier, Kevin. The championship going to be getting away from him even more now, as those 150 points that are dished out to the winner in one race obviously is going to be split into 275s for a super sprint. And if you're Clifford in fourth, that's kind of the last thing you want, because you're already, 85 points down in the championship, and this is just going to add to it.
You lost a chunk for finishing second, and now you're losing even more for fourth. But something that occurred to me is, because we are, any penalties that will be handed out post-race, we potentially have a penalty for Keo for contact that was earlier with Portis. So that could change things yet again.
Well, that'll be interesting to look at. Frizza, of course, with the drive-through hanging over his head on the last lap. Looks like he is just going to take the 30-second penalty, so we'll see how far back that puts him. He is giving us the battle with Sanchez, of course, something that we were hoping for. Out of the slipstream he goes, maybe going to give the slipstream back to the McLaren. That was rather close there. Maybe getting a little bit dicey, trying to get a little bit of the dramatics there. Sanchez parked right up on the rear bumper. And he makes the touch, and Frizza's around. Sanchez.
I gritted my teeth 3 seconds before that happened.
Yep.
Ouch.
Oh, that's not going to go over too well.
Last lap move I get, but that had very little chance of success. But Keo finishes second. We'll have to see how that plays out in the long term. But overall, first of all, two very clean races. There was some contact and some banging, but didn't have any huge accidents. We didn't have turn one pile-ups or any of that foolishness. Relatively few penalties. Overall, I think that was an exceptional pair of races for anybody that doesn't like the super sprint format. I post this as evidence as to why you should.
Yep, I agree. So Lovering comes home P1, then it's Keo, Landry, Clifford, Carpenter, Portis, just outside that top five. Then it's Rasco, Sanchez, probably with a penalty. Post-race, Frizza does get plus 30. Fernandez will be 9th, and it's Lanham, Hernandez, Doggins, Wicks, Stapleton, Pocket, Lloyd. Hasser not getting to the checkered flag. You wonder what that's all about. Maybe something outside of the Simrig for him. So we're just waiting on what is now Hernandez and Doggins. This is the last two of the amateur drivers still out on the grid. Fernandez, though, taking it home for the red box, and Doggins will be getting third behind Hernandez's second, and then Stapleton just missing out a little bit of a slide there from the 55. Not that it really matters. There's no one behind him, so he'll cross the line, and that is going to do it for us here tonight. Second race in the books, and we'll take one, of course, quick final look at the results, and we'll be getting out of here. So let's move things over. So race number one, of course, it was Loverink, 3 seconds clear of Clifford. Then it's Landry, Carpenter, and Keo rounding out your top five. 2 Lamborghinis, 2 McLarens, one Aston Martin, respectively. Then for the Pro-Ams, Darren Wicks, Lanham, Hasser, Lloyd, and Pocket. For the amateurs, Fernandez, Hernandez, Doggins, Martinez, Stapleton, and we didn't see Bandera out there. He was there for a moment, but despite all of the Z's there, no sleeping for any of them. And then for those that haven't been ranked yet. Sanchez and Frizza. Race number 2. Loverink going back-to-back, making up for the race at Monza 2 weeks ago where he did disconnect, but he'll be more than happy to just grab another 150 points free of charge. Keo, second place. Pit strategy working in his favor quite well. Just half a second home ahead of Landry, then Clifford and Carpenter. Frizza down in 11th position after being spun. He crossed the line in 9th, but 30 seconds is going to promote Fernandez and Lanham up a couple positions. For the Pro-Am, speaking of Lanham, he takes home bragging rights for that team, or for that classification. Then it's Wicks, Pocket, Lloyd. Hasser was in the pits for quite a while. Not certain what that's about, but he'll take 5th. Then for the amateurs, Hernandez, Doggan, Stapleton, Bandera still in there for some reason, and Martinez, who stepped out early. And then for the silvers, Sanchez and Frizza. I believe that was exactly the same as last race. Yes, it was. But this time, Frizza had 30 seconds tacked on and a post-race penalty. But Kevin, that is going to do it for us here tonight. Closing thoughts on the matter?
I had in my head, I was hoping for rain, and in retrospect, I'm glad we didn't get it. That was a spectacular race. It didn't need any more drama. And while the numbers are starting to make it look like the season might be pretty much a foregone conclusion, there's nothing more boring about Barcelona, and there's going to be nothing boring about, in all likelihood, Red Bull. So watching these guys race there for the last 2 races of the season, it's going to be.
Yeah, it's gonna be exciting to see. Barcelona, I'm always sort of a bit indifferent on because I mean it's the testing grounds for Formula One. We hear about it for everything, and to me it's sort of just another circuit. But depending on how these drivers get sorted out for it, will dictate how exciting the race is. Of course, hoping for the best. But before we go, of course, one final shout out to Simrigs sponsoring season 16 of the Sprint Series out of Melbourne, Australia, servicing all, of course, Australia, New Zealand. Wheels, pedals, shifters, gloves, anything you can think of to tack on to your sim rig. Well, this guy and everyone who works for him, they've got you covered. And if you're like Kevin, myself, or pretty much anyone else in the world that is an Australian or a Kiwi, if you send them an email, they'd be more than happy to do some business with you. And if you're supporting our organization by being one of our Patreon members, you guys are going to be getting a 5% code to use for any in-store purchases at Simrigs, so do take advantage of that. Not a cheap hobby by any means. I'm sure Kevin and I and everyone else can attest to such a thing. But again, thank you to Simrigs for sponsoring another season of the Sprint Series. Hope to see them again in the future. But that is going to do it for us here tonight, folks. We are off for 1 week, back again at Barcelona, and we are going to be having another exciting hour-long sprint race for you guys to see. The battle for the crown may be over, but perhaps some last-second heroics can dictate otherwise. But on behalf of myself, Kevin Parody, and everybody here at the OOR, I'd like to thank you so much for stopping by. Hope you enjoyed your stay, and as always, until next time, stay safe, stay beautiful, keep between the lines. We'll see you next week.